Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. I'm not exactly sure when you will be seeing this, but greetings from Israel. Uh, I'm Doug Altabef, the chairman of the board of Im Tirtzu, which is Israel's largest grassroots Zionist organization, and an organization that has been very busy in these past week or so uh, on the home front. Uh, the series that we have put together, which has the title of Eyewitness to Anarchy, happens to feature three of our teammates. We have a small team, but three of them experienced very directly, uh, very close up encounters with what I would call anarchy. In the case of the discussion we're about to have with Eytan Meir, who is our Director of External Affairs, Eytan is a resident, and his family has been a resident of Lod for the past couple of years. Lod has probably been ground zero in all of the domestic unrest, meaning Arab rioting, that has been going on throughout Israel. And I think it's very important that you have the benefit of what Eytan was forced to experience. So, Eytan, it's good to see you. I know that you are actually not in Lod right now. I know that your wonderful wife, Neely, is due on an any day now type of basis. And because women are much, much smarter than men, she told you we're getting out of here with your two delicious young children, and you're decamped up a little bit further north in Zichron Yaakov. But nevertheless, you spent some harrowing evenings in Lod, and we want to talk about that. But first, can you tell us what brought you and your family to Lod?
Well, we were looking for a place that was in the center of Israel because my wife works in the center. I work in Jerusalem. We were looking around for different communities that were relatively affordable, which in Israel is not something that you could find too often. We heard about Lod, and like everybody, when we heard Lod, we said, Lod, that doesn't have the best reputation. We're going to stay away from that. Then we kept on hearing it over and over again from friends, so we went to visit. And it turns out that in recent years, the past 10, 20 years, there's been a lot of young people coming to Lod to try to build up the city, to try to really improve it. And there are a few wonderful communities. We went to a community, we saw that the community was fantastic. Everyone was very idealistic, very passionate about building up the city and making it a place that people could prosper also in terms of the relations with our Arab neighbors and also economically to improve the education there. And we just visited there and we said, great, this seems like the place for us, and we moved there. And it's been fantastic until up to up to a few days ago.
Right. So you're classic urban pioneers, basically. And often urban pioneers do this because they don't have children. Here, it sounds like precisely because you had a young and growing family that the economics of Lod were compelling for you. And like you say, you found a community of similarly situated people. So now you've moved in, you're living there. How has it been in terms of the dynamic between Jewish communities, Arab communities?
Overall, it's been fantastic. Again, barring the past several days, it's been great. You know, in Lodi, really live. There are some communities like our community that we are a Jewish community, and then quite literally 100 meters, 200 meters, a few hundred feet, there's the Arab community. So we're living really as neighbors. There's other Jewish communities that actually they live in the same buildings as their Arab neighbors and right across the street in the same buildings. And that's actually one of the communities that got hit the hardest because they weren't able to defend themselves properly. And I guess we'll talk about that a little later. But the relations were great. I mean, when you talk about shopping, we shop together. We go to the post office when we need to pick up things. We go to that Arab mini market. It's right next to us. You wouldn't think
Right.
anything of it. Before these past few days, no one really could have imagined what would have happened because they're our neighbors, right? It's been peace. Everything's been great, and it took everybody by surprise.
So it wasn't like it was a simmering situation. It wasn't like, gee, we're worried that any time this could blow, that type of a situation,
No,
right?
there was always, petty crimes here and there. maybe a window would be broken here from a car. This would be stolen. That would be stolen. There was never this giant nationalistic thing that we've seen now. No, not even close.
Yeah. Ironically, what you're describing is the way the residents of Hebron in 1929 described their community, where there was quite a bit of social interaction, quite a bit of integration, and then pitom, when the word came down, terrible, terrible things happened. So let's talk about what did happen. Give us a little bit of a timeline of what happened.
So I think again, these past few days have been so hectic, so my timeline may be off. It was either Monday or Tuesday night, the first nights of the pogrom.
So Yom Yerushalayim, right?
Correct. So I guess that was Monday.
That was Monday.
It was Monday.
Yes, Monday.
So Monday night, everything is fine in the city. We put the kids to sleep, and then around 9 or 10 o'clock, we start hearing a lot of noise. We start hearing blasts. We start hearing screams. We start going outside and see already the smoke from our building. At that point, no one had any idea what was going on. We turn on the news because, again, it wasn't the way that our community is. Let's say, you can imagine like a sandwich. There's our community, there's a big Arab community, and on the other side, there's another mixed Arab and Jewish community. So the first spat of violence and the main spat of violence happened in that mixed Arab community called Ramat Eshkol. So we start getting messages from people saying we're under attack. Like there's massive mobs of hundreds of Arabs, and they're attacking us. And at this point, it took everybody by surprise. No one really knew what was going on. And all we did was we heard these blasts, and it was really a war zone. You really heard a war zone going on that first night. And at that time, we were unorganized, and we woke up the next morning and throughout the night to the news of what happened, how they burnt the synagogue, how they burnt the elementary school, how they were waving Hamas flags, Palestine Liberation Organization flags. Our neighborhood specifically, it's sort of like a square, and people park their cars inside, and they also park their cars outside as well. So all the cars that were parked outside, they were all the glass was broken on the windows, the mirrors were broken off. Needless to say, now if you go there are no cars anymore on the outside of the neighborhood. And then we took everybody by surprise. Everybody was shocked. And also a lot of this rioting happened right outside the new municipality building. The city built this gigantic, beautiful 90 million shekel municipality building right in the heart of the Arab neighborhood, which is a 2-minute walk from my house. And there's these crazy pictures that you see of cars on fire with the street sign. The street sign is IDF Street, Israel Defense Forces Street, on the ground, and in the background you see the municipality. I mean, it's these crazy stories. So the police came, and I guess it's a whole different discussion of why the police weren't able to quell the riots, but they weren't that successful. And you had a war going on outside of the municipality building, and meantime the Arab rioters were going and looting and burning cars of all the Jews. And the second night we said, okay, there's no way this is happening again. There's no way. The police know what's happening. The country knows what's happening. But then 6 o'clock the following evening, it starts again. What happened was they had a funeral for one of what I believe to be a terrorist they were encroaching on a Jewish houses. So a bunch of Jews came down to defend themselves. They started saying, go away. A few of them had guns. They shot in the air. And the Arab mob kept on approaching them with Molotov cocktails and rocks. So then one of the Jews shot and killed one of the terrorists. And that Jew is currently held in detention now. He's being accused of murder. And that's a whole different story. And so they had the funeral for this terrorist who was killed at 6 o'clock the following day. So I don't know if you've seen the Arab funerals a lot. Especially for terrorists, they have a lot of people coming out, and they have the funeral procession going from the cemetery through that mixed neighborhood. Again, we're talking about a 10-minute walk from where I live, and there were hundreds and hundreds of terrorists there screaming, anti-Jewish things, Allahu Akbar, death to the Jews. And then already at 6 o'clock, it's starting the rioting again. It took until 1:30 a.m. for the police to come because the government had declared a state of a national emergency. They sent in, I believe, 19 companies of the border police. And only at 1:30 they actually arrived. And around 2:30, it started to be quiet again. The next night, we said, okay, this is not happening again. Sorry.
Well, let me stop you for a second. So you say that at 1:30, the border police arrived. And the border police, for the benefit of our viewers, are special police who they're not, regular cops. They are police who are charged with making sure that there aren't incursions into Israel, that they are protecting the borders. And so it's very unusual for border police to be sent in the middle into the heart of Israel. Now, you sort of beg the question, where were the regular police from 6 o'clock to 1:30 when the border police showed up?
So that is the money question, and that's the question that we've all been asking. And what I believe is that they weren't given the means to do it. It's not. We love our police officers. We love all of our security forces. But when you have a police officer who's commanding officer, who I guess is getting also his orders from the government, telling them, guys, you can't really do what needs to be done to quell the riots, then they can't do anything. They're useless. And that's exactly what happened. All the policemen were using throughout all the nights of rioting were flashbang grenades, which basically are grenades that make big noise and they're meant to scare people, and pepper spray. Nothing, no rubber bullets, not even the skunk spray that they used for the rioters, not real bullets. So the rioters knew that.
No water cannon.
Yeah,
no water
exactly.
cannons.
So they knew, and they knew that, listen, this is what the police are doing. So the police succeeded in, let's say, scaring them off for a few minutes. Then the police left to the next spot of the rioting. And then the rioters from the original spot came, and they came back and they started burning. The burning was my clothes. The stench of my clothes was unbelievable. The air in the entire city was just ash. It was unbelievable.
With the passage of time, do you have any sense of what precipitated this? What was the match, as it were?
Well, it depends who you ask. If you listen to the international media, they'll talk about the Israeli provocations in Sheikh Jarrah and Jerusalem. I just heard an interview on CNN when the anchor was blaming, I forgot who was speaking, and they said, but it was Israel's fault because they evicted families in Sheikh Jarrah and they attacked innocent worshippers in Al-Aqsa, both are which very false and and distorted. Don't want to get into now the whole business of Sheikh Jarrah, but they just wanted an excuse. The rioters wanted an excuse. I don't know how burning down an elementary school has to do with Al-Aqsa. They burnt down trees. You have to imagine the kind of chaos. It's not like they just burnt down Jewish property. They burnt and uprooted trees throughout the whole entire block. It makes you think, like, what's wrong? What is wrong with these people? And the answer is that they hate Jews and they want Jews dead. If you ask me, it's as simple as that.
Yeah. One of the stories I read said that Imams from East Jerusalem were visiting mosques in Lod and inciting, provoking, and stirring up people to go and keep going, as it were. Have you heard about this? Is this getting play?
Yeah, so we definitely heard about it. I can't confirm which imam is which, but we have videos from where you see mosques from the loudspeakers and where you see crowds gathering around imams, and they're saying, come to the mosque, defend yourselves against the occupiers, defend yourselves, come. They're really inciting stuff. And this is happening in a lot of times in broad daylight, right? It happens in broad daylight in the middle of the city, 15 minutes away from Tel Aviv. Police are nowhere to be found. It's, that's the situation.
Yeah. Well, there will be a lot that we will have to decipher when things calm down, and one of which will be exactly what the role of the police was, or what kind of orders they were given, why they were not able to be more effective. Because you hear, as I'm sure you did, our politicians, our leaders coming out taking very, very strong stances. We will not tolerate anarchy. There is no place for violence. And yet, as you say, on the ground, where the rubber meets the road, the police were a real disappointment, almost a no-show, effectively. Has that continued, or have they changed tactics in the last few days?
So Thursday night, which is already the fourth night of the riots, was the first day that the police had a significant presence. And again, I don't say this against the police. We love the police, and that's what we kept on telling them. Like, guys, please come. Right? It's not in America how you see this trend against many people on the far left vilifying the police. It's just the opposite. We love the police. We want to support them, and the fact that they weren't there makes us very, very sad and disheartened. But on Thursday night was the first time that you actively saw police cars all around the city. The policemen came to talk with us, which was very, very good to finally see them. What do I mean with us? I mean because our community because of the lack of the police presence, had to organize a community watch. Our community and the other community, we have people who are armed with whoever has guns with guns, whoever has bats with bats, metal, things from the sukkah, metal poles from the sukkah, anything. And we have to guard ourselves because you know that if they're not there, then the Arabs, the rioters, the terrorists are just going to come in and I really believe they would try to murder. If they could, they would try to murder us, 100%. So Thursday night was the first night the police were there, and thankfully it was the best night. That's what improved. And another thing that I believe that improved, and this is something that you don't really hear anywhere, is the amount of people from outside the city, the Jewish Israelis that came in to help, was amazing. You just had people from all over the country saying, could I help? Do you need our help? And we set up a whole system within our city, nothing to do with the municipality. These are all civilians. They had a whole system where people could call in, and then they would be directed to all different places to stand on guard duty. And you just saw the people coming in, and it was just, and you had a lot of people from Yehuda, from Judea and Samaria coming in, and they were saying, I would never think that we would be coming to protect you, that we're safe all the way in this community, and God knows where, but you're in the middle of the center of Israel, you need the, and that was another thing that also changed the balance of power, because you had a lot of courageous people who came in and they weren't afraid to stand up to the rioters. And when the rioters saw that they were there, then they got afraid because they knew that, listen, these guys mean business. It's not like the police. They're not afraid of the police because they know the police will not shoot to kill. But they're afraid of civilians that are armed, and they know that if they attack them with Molotov cocktails, they're going to get shot. And so we saw already in the third day, the balance sort of shifting when the terrorists weren't daring as much because there was a lot of people from outside the city protecting us, as well as us ourselves, obviously.
Yeah, you had told me that early on the police were disarming Jewish volunteers who were trying to create a community watch, taking away baseball bats, taking away anything that could be used if push came to shove. Yeah. Did that continue throughout, or were they allowing Jews to assert themselves?
No, that it didn't continue. It was only on the second night of the rioting, which was the first night that we organized the defense. That's when the police came. The police were there at around 6, 7 o'clock. They came around. They saw everyone standing there. They took away all of the bats and all the metal clubs, and then they left. And we didn't see them again until like 1 or 2 in the morning. And that didn't continue, thankfully, but also because that second night after, the whole community ordered pepper spray. We ordered a lot of pepper spray, and that was our, whoever didn't have real weapons, that was their defense. So yeah, that was a crazy story.
So have most of the young families left, or are people doubled down? What is the status of the community right now?
It's in Ramat Eshkol, which is the mixed community. It's pretty much empty. The police were even evacuating the Jewish families, just so you understand the level of craziness. So there it's virtually empty. It's a ghost town. But there are people from outside. There's amazing people from outside of Lod, mostly singles. They're now sleeping in the homes, with their permission, of course, of the Jewish families in Ramat Eshkol to make sure that they don't get ransacked. Because people who left, the Arab neighbors. When I say neighbors, I mean sometimes literally neighbors that live across the hall. They broke into their home and they just destroyed it completely. So you have people sleeping there. In my community, you have, I would say, half the people left. A lot of people, their families left, and the men stayed there to man. We also had volunteers who came, and who are still there currently. They were there for Shabbat and also for Shavuot. But yeah, it's a very hard situation, especially with kids. Thankfully the city is the people in the city are amazing, and the teachers and all the kindergarten teachers, they're sending messages to really get the kids' spirits up. And
schools are closed, I assume.
So schools are closed in all the places that are in rocket range, but in Lod, they closed the day before. So our schools were closed because of the riots the day before, and then the following day, we were joined by everybody else. So we got a special closure for 2 reasons.
Right. So tell us, I understand Im Tirtzu came to town to do a morale lifting demonstration. Give us a little bit of sense of how that went.
Yeah, so first of all, it was amazing, and I'm not just saying that because I work for Im Tirtzu. The atmosphere there was just people were desperate for something like that to come to the city. I already saw in our WhatsApp groups of the community, people were circulating this poster that we put out. Again, they were saying, guys, there's a rally, come. They're giving out free flags. He distributed hundreds of flags there. And it was the night before was the first night of the riots. And they're the first, I guess, famous or infamous video of the riots where you have these terrorists there burning a police station or attempting to burn it. They only burned a little part of it, waving Hamas flags. And one of them was climbing up on the flagpole, and they took off an Israeli flag and put up a flag of the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization. So our rally, we handed out hundreds of Israeli flags, and we had
Excuse me, and which night was your rally?
On the second night.
Second night.
On the second night. And then you had one guy, a couple of guys actually climbing up on flagpoles in the city and putting back the Israeli flag. And it's so needed because the people in Lod, we feel that we're sort of, the government is just not taking care of us and we're left to our own devices. So when you see people coming in, it raises your spirits. We actually plan to do another rally the following night on the third night of the violence. But then the police decided to impose a lockdown on the city. How no one was allowed inside the city, which was also hard because there were many people trying to come in to help protect us, and they weren't allowed in. So the following night they just came in early before the lockdown. So yeah, and it was fantastic. You could see the videos on social media of just the amount of people there. And it's funny, we did it we were supposed to do it outside the school that was burnt, the school and the synagogue that was burnt, and we called to do it at 6:30. But right at 6:30 was when the funeral procession for the terrorists was passing there, and there was even live fire and burning, so we had to move it to the center of the city. And then you see cars passing us, and a lot of them are honking, good job, we're with you. Then you see some of the Arab residents passing by, cursing at us, yelling at us, and yeah.
Yeah, right. So last real question is, what happens going forward? What do you think will be happening in Lod in the short term, and then what needs to happen in a little bit longer term?
What needs to happen, in my opinion, is simple as that the police need to be able to do their job. Meaning they want to do their job, they're just not able to do their job. The government needs to give them the green light to go into these Arab communities, arrest whoever was involved in these riots, to confiscate all the guns. There was an incredible amount of live fire coming from the Arab terrorists, and all their guns are obviously illegal. They need to clean house. They need to crack down. They need to implement a policy that says if you're involved in violence, if you throw a rock, if you throw a Molotov cocktail, if you burn someone's car, you are going into jail for a long, long time. And that's going to work, and that's what they understand. This is the Middle East culture. If you give people an inch, they're going to take a foot. If you tell them, listen, if I see you with a rock, there's going to be at least rubber bullets. You're going to get a bullet in response, and the riots will be over the next day. In terms of us citizens and how it's going to be moving forward, I think that we're very resilient, the Israeli public in general. I mean, you have thousands of rockets being shot at in the Sderot and all these cities out in the Gaza periphery, obviously now in the center as well. And there's people still living there. I think the same is here. We're going to continue to live. Where are we going to go get, a milk if we need it at 10 o'clock at night? Where are we going to go pick up our mail? We're going to go to these same places in the Arab neighborhood because there's no other choice. I think for a long, long time, there's going to be a lot of apprehension moving forward and a lot of fear. I can see now a lot of people wanting to go there voluntarily. I'm certainly going to be armed if I ever have to go into just the neighborhood to pick up my mail. But hopefully we'll get over it. And hopefully the police will do what needs to be done to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah. You sort of touch on something very important, which is this issue of resilience, which is the issue of morale of the people. The people don't set government policy, but we do determine how we will live on a day-to-day basis and how we will regard our situation, our neighbors, and things like that. One of the things, and I know you're involved with this, that in Tier 2 has been asked to do is to really do a national morale building campaign. And we are exploring that and how that would work. And what you talk about in terms of your experience in Lod is really precisely the validation for the need of something like that. Because when you say that people took a lot of heart from seeing people from the outside come, bringing flags, saying, we're with you, you're not alone, it means a lot to people, that they feel that they are cared for, they're cared about, and Israel has been famous for this, that people come together. They don't need to be told to come together. They do on their own initiative. And it's, frankly, the issues with Hamas, to me, are less scary than the issues of what you've just talked about. Because this is the warp and woof of Israeli society itself. And how do we get through that? How do we make sure that we can restore trust? Not an easy thing, but I want to thank you for giving us your eyewitness accounts. It's something that a lot of people, they'll read a headline, they'll read a sentence, but they don't necessarily get the real gist, the real feel of the details of what's gone on. And you've been able to supply us with that. And, I think we would both agree that this is an amazing country, and our future, with all of our challenges, is bright, should be bright, but it's all in our hands, so to speak. It's up to us. And thankfully, with people like you, with your neighbors, I have great confidence that we will prevail and we will go to even better levels. So thank you, Eytan. We're talking the day before Shavuot, so I wish you and your family a Chag Sameach, and everyone in your community a Chag Sameach. And maybe when we come through the holiday, we'll find things on a little bit better keel. So thank you again, and thank you to our friends in Israel and in America and the diaspora who are joining us to hear Eytan's story. Thank you.